Underneath the polished surface of who you think you are, there exists another self you've been taught to ignore. This hidden self is not weak or flawed, it is wild, unpredictable, and unapologetically real. Most people spend their entire lives running from it, covering it with layers of politeness, career ambitions, and social masks, thinking that this is what it means to grow up. But what if the version of you that society calls immature or too intense is actually the truest expression of your nature? From the moment you were a child, you were slowly shaped to fit a mold that wasn't designed for your individuality but for your compliance. You were rewarded when you played along and punished when you resisted. Over time, you learned to edit yourself, not just your words, but even your feelings, your instincts, your desires, until you began to forget what they were in the first place. You became a character in someone else's play, reading lines you didn't write, following rules you didn't choose, and convincing yourself it was all your own will. This is why so many people feel a quiet emptiness, even when their life looks successful from the outside. They've been living as the version of themselves that others can accept, but never as the one that could truly set them free. Freedom is not simply the absence of chains you can see, it is the dismantling of the invisible ones that shape your thoughts, your habits, and your self-image without you realizing it. The most dangerous prison is not built of walls and bars, but of beliefs that convince you you're already free. Society has a way of offering you a menu of identities, as if you're making a free choice. In reality, you're simply selecting from a pre-approved list of acceptable roles: student, worker, spouse, consumer, each one coming with its own script, expectations, and invisible leash. And because everyone around you is playing the same game, it's easy to believe that this is all life can be. Yet deep down, there are moments where the mask slips, moments when a sudden burst of emotion, a forbidden thought, or an unexplainable pull towards something irrational reminds you that you're not just the role you've been playing. That's the beginning of awakening. It starts as discomfort, maybe even guilt, because stepping into your real self feels like breaking a law you never agreed to. But the truth is, no one can tell you who you are without your cooperation. The moment you stop playing along, the illusion begins to collapse. The journey back to yourself is not about creating a new identity, it's about stripping away the false ones. It's not about becoming someone else, but remembering the raw, unedited self you've been hiding from the world. This is why so many people sabotage themselves without knowing it. The life they built was designed for their mask, not for their real nature. And when your true self begins to emerge, that life starts to feel suffocating. Old relationships, old habits, even old dreams begin to fall apart, not because you're failing, but because you're finally waking up. And the world will resist this. People will say you've changed, as if it's a betrayal. They will try to remind you of who you used to be, not out of malice, but because your liberation threatens their comfort. Yet every step you take toward authenticity is a step away from the invisible prison, and a step closer to living with the kind of freedom most people will never taste. The choice is not whether you will be shaped, it's whether you will be shaped by the truth within you or by the demands of a world that benefits from keeping you asleep. If you want, the moment you begin to dismantle the false self, you will face a strange and unsettling void. This is the space where the old identity no longer holds power, but the new, authentic self has not yet fully emerged. Most people cannot tolerate this gap. They rush to fill it with distractions, new labels, or quick fixes, anything to avoid the rawness of simply existing without a predefined role. But this in-between stage is not a failure. It's a crucible. It's the fire that burns away what doesn't belong to you, even if it feels like you're losing everything. You will be tempted to run back to the comfort of the familiar, even if that familiar is suffocating, because the mind craves certainty more than truth. Yet it is in this uncertainty that you will encounter the deepest truths about yourself. You'll discover that so many of your fears were never about the unknown, they were about the loss of the known, the tearing away of your illusions. The friendships that were built on your old identity may crumble, the ambitions that once fueled you may feel hollow, and the approval you once chased may lose its grip. It is here, in this space of shedding, that you begin to taste a new kind of freedom, not the loud, dramatic kind that movies glorify, but a quiet, steady liberation that grows stronger with every layer you let go of. But here lies a deeper challenge. Once you have glimpsed your real self, you can never go back without knowing you are lying to yourself. That is both the gift and the burden of awakening. The masks may be tempting to put back on, but they will feel heavier now, more suffocating than before. And the more you resist your truth, the more life will push you toward it, often through discomfort, chaos, or loss. This is not punishment. It is a kind of ruthless mercy. Life has a way of stripping you of everything that does not belong to the person you truly are, even if you cling to it with every ounce of your will. At first, this will feel like destruction, but in time, you will see that what was taken from you was never yours to keep. The relationships that end, the dreams that dissolve, the images of yourself that shatter, they are all making space for something real to grow. And in this process, you will discover that your strength was never in holding on. It was always in letting go without losing yourself. The world will tell you that to be strong is to endure, to keep your head down and survive. But true strength is to walk away from what kills your spirit, even when every voice around you tells you to stay. Eventually, there comes a turning point. You stop measuring your worth by the standards that once held you captive. You no longer seek validation from the same systems you've outgrown, because you understand that freedom cannot be negotiated with the structures built to control you. You begin to act from a place of self-trust, making decisions that may not make sense to anyone else but feel undeniably right to you. And this is when the world will truly test you. It will send temptations disguised as opportunities, distractions dressed as responsibilities, and people who will try to pull you back into the gravity of their fears. This is not a sign to doubt yourself. It is proof that you've begun to step out of the collective trance. Every time you choose your truth over their comfort, you strengthen the foundation of the life you are building. This foundation is not made of achievements or appearances. It is made of the unshakable knowledge that you are living in alignment with who you really are. And that is the kind of power that cannot be bought, imitated, or taken away. Once you have crossed this threshold, something extraordinary happens. You no longer fear the judgment of others in the same way, because you understand that their opinions are often just reflections of their own unexamined fears. You begin to see how much of human interaction is a performance, and you lose the need to play along. This doesn't make you cold or detached. In fact, it makes you more deeply connected, because you are no longer relating to people through your mask but through your truth. You stop trying to convince anyone to understand you, because you realize that those who are meant to walk with you will recognize you without explanation, and those who don't never truly saw you to begin with. This is the quiet revolution that happens inside the shift from needing to be seen to simply being, and once you taste that, there is no going back. You no longer live for the applause, the approval, or the acceptance, because you have found something far more valuable: yourself. There comes a point where you realize that the battle is no longer with the world outside, but with the part of you that has grown comfortable inside the cage. This is the most dangerous stage of transformation, because the enemy is no longer something you can see or point to. It is woven into your habits, your excuses, your comforts. You've broken through layers of lies, rejected the identities forced upon you, and even tasted the raw air of your own truth. But then something strange happens. You begin to hesitate. You feel the pull of old patterns, the quiet whisper of safety, the lure of familiar roles. Not because they fit you anymore, but because they are easy. Your mind starts bargaining with you. Maybe I don't have to change everything. Maybe I can just keep parts of the old life and mix them with the new. It sounds reasonable, but this is how the mask rebuilds itself. The ego doesn't want to die. It will happily reshape itself to survive under the banner of growth. And this is why so many people experience cycles of awakening followed by relapse into the same small patterns. They think the war is over, when in truth, they've only survived the first battle. The real victory comes when you stop treating freedom as a destination and start living it as a discipline. You begin to understand that liberation isn't about a single breakthrough. It's about showing up every day and refusing to betray yourself, even in small ways. It's about noticing when you start to perform for approval again, when you tone yourself down to avoid conflict, when you make decisions based on fear instead of truth. And in those moments you face a choice. Will you retreat into the comfort of being liked, or will you stand firm in the discomfort of being real? It's not a glamorous fight. No one will clap for you when you choose truth in silence. No one will throw a parade when you say no to a path that would have brought you easy rewards at the cost of your soul. But this is where the unshakable self is forged in, the quiet, uncelebrated decisions that align you with who you really are. And the more you live in that alignment, the less tolerance you have for anything that demands you shrink. You begin to see clearly how much of the world's noise is just an invitation to forget yourself again, and you learn to decline it without apology. Eventually, you stop chasing the idea of becoming someone better and start embracing the person you already are when all the pretending is stripped away. This is the point where you no longer look to others for permission, not because you've grown arrogant, but because you finally understand that your worth was never up for negotiation. You stop measuring your value by how many people approve of you, how many achievements you can collect, or how well you can mimic the lives others say are worth living. Instead, your measure becomes internal: how deeply you can trust yourself, how much truth you can hold without flinching, how willing you are to lose what is fake in order to keep what is real. And when you reach this stage, you realize something powerful. The world doesn't actually have control over you. It never did. It only had the power you surrendered to it, piece by piece, in exchange for comfort, safety, or validation. Once you stop giving that power away, you see how small the prison really was, and how vast your own territory truly is. At this point, life begins to take on a different quality. You are no longer driven by desperation, nor are you seduced by the endless mirages of, when I have this, then I'll be happy. You've stepped out of that loop entirely, because you no longer need the future to rescue you from the present. Your sense of self is no longer hanging on the edge of someone else's acceptance or the next achievement on your list. You begin to experience a rare kind of peace, not the fragile peace that depends on everything going your way, but the deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing you can face anything without betraying yourself. And from this place, you can engage with the world differently. You're no longer seeking to conquer it to prove your worth, nor are you running from it in fear. You interact with it as someone who is already whole, who has nothing to hide and nothing to prove. This doesn't mean life becomes easy. Challenges will still come, but they no longer have the power to dismantle you, because you've already dismantled the greatest illusion that your worth depends on anything outside of you. And in that moment, you finally understand what true freedom feels like. It's not loud, it's not flashy. It's the quiet knowing that no matter where you stand, no matter who stays or leaves, you remain yourself. And that is enough.